Everyone thought she was done for good. It wasn't just a rumor, it was a eulogy. We all saw the match. We saw the moment the human body is simply not supposed to bend that way. The snap. The silence that fell over 20,000 people. A sound louder than any explosion. Then, the stretcher. The agonizingly slow ride back up the ramp, a single hand weakly raised, not in victory, but in a fractured goodbye. The press conference days later was sterile, cold. Doctors used words like catastrophic and career ending. She sat there, not in her gear, but in a simple black dress, her arm in a complex web of slings and stabilizers. She didn't cry. That, perhaps, was the most heartbreaking part. She just looked tired. She thanked the fans, she thanked her colleagues, and she spoke of her career in the past tense. The universe moved on, as it always does. T-shirts were relegated to the back of closets. Her theme music was removed from the rotation. New champions were crowned. New faces graced the posters. Her name became a "Remember When," a story told to new fans about a flame that burned brighter than any other, only to be extinguished far too soon. She wasn't just gone from the ring. She was erased from the present. She was history. And for 2 long years, history stayed written. No interviews, no social media, just a profound, deafening silence. The world accepted it. She was done. In her absence, the division she had built fell into a quiet sort of chaos. It wasn't that the talent wasn't good, it was that they weren't her. She had been the measuring stick, the final boss, the sun around which all other stories orbited. Without her, there was a vacuum. Champions felt temporary, their reigns hollow. The crown, which she had made the most prestigious prize in the sport, suddenly seemed like a prop. Commentators tried, bless them. They tried to build up new threats, new phenoms, new revolutionaries. But every time a new contender emerged, the online forums would light up with the same 5 words. She would have beaten them. The shadow she cast was so immense that it blocked out all new light. The woman who held the championship now, a dominant force in her own right, was a brilliant technician, a ruthless competitor. But she had a fatal flaw. She had never beaten her. She had risen to prominence only after the injury. She ruled a kingdom, but it was a kingdom built on the ashes of the previous dynasty. And so, she walked around with a ghost on her shoulder, a title belt that always felt like it had an asterisk next to it. The champion hated this. She hated the whispers, the comparisons. She would cut promos in the ring, screaming that the old guard was dead, that the past was gone, and that she was the present. The fans would boo, not because they hated her, but because they simply didn't believe her. It was the main event of the biggest show of the year. The champion had just retained her title. A hard-fought, grueling battle. She stood in the center of the ring, sweaty, bruised but triumphant, holding the gold high above her head. Fireworks exploded. The pyro smoke was thick, acrid. The commentary team was wrapping up, thanking the audience for tuning in. It was the predictable end to a predictable, albeit excellent, show. The champion grabbed a microphone, ready to rub her victory in the faces of the 70,000 fans chanting against her. She opened her mouth to speak, and just as she drew breath, click. The arena lights snapped off. A total, plunging darkness. The crowd roared, confused. This wasn't part of the show. The champion's microphone went dead. The giant screens flickered and died. A technical difficulty? A power outage? The arena thrummed with a nervous energy. Then a single sound cut through the black. A sound nobody had heard in over 2 years. The sharp, unmistakable static-laden hiss that always preceded her music. It was just a second, a breath. But for every single person in that stadium, time stopped. 70,000 people drew a collective gasp. Was it a mistake? A tribute video? A cruel, technical glitch? And then the first synthesized note, that defiant, pounding bass line. A sound of resurrection. It wasn't a recording. It wasn't a memory. It was happening. The music washed over the crowd, and for a full 5 seconds there was only the sound of the song. The fans were paralyzed, caught between disbelief and a fragile, desperate hope. They stared at the empty entrance ramp, waiting, praying. Then a single, stark, white light hit the top of the stage, cutting through the smoke. And there, a silhouette. It was unmistakable. The posture, the set of the shoulders, the way she just stood there, owning the entire arena without moving a muscle. The stadium didn't cheer. It detonated. It was a primal, guttural roar of pure, unadulterated shock. People were grabbing their heads. Strangers were hugging strangers. Grown men, tough men who had watched wrestling their whole lives, were openly weeping, tears streaming down their faces. They weren't just seeing a performer. They were seeing a miracle. She slowly walked forward, emerging from the silhouette into the full light. She looked different, stronger. The tiredness in her eyes was gone, replaced by an icy, terrifying focus. She wore no elaborate gear, just simple black boots and tights. She didn't smile. She didn't wave. She just stared, her gaze fixed on the ring, on the champion who had dropped the microphone, her face a mask of pale, horrified disbelief. The champion had built a kingdom on her grave, and the ghost had just returned to reclaim the throne. Backstage, it was Pandemonium. The area just behind the curtain, known as the gorilla position, is usually a place of controlled chaos. Tonight, it was just chaos. Only 3 people knew: the head of the company, the lead producer, and the superstar herself. Everyone else, the camera operators, the sound technicians, the writers, and especially the other performers, were caught completely blind. When her music hit, producers who had been in the business for 40 years dropped their headsets. They stared, slack-jawed, at the monitor. The champion's opponent, who had just lost the main event and was being tended to by doctors, sat bolt upright, forgetting her own pain. She just whispered, "No, it's not possible." The director was screaming into his mic, "Get a camera on the champion. Get a camera on the crowd. Stay on her. Do not cut away." Wrestlers who were already changed and ready to leave the building sprinted back, crowding around the monitors, pushing and shoving to get a better look. They saw the faces in the crowd, they heard the noise, and they felt a sudden, cold shift in the air. The entire hierarchy of the locker room, the pecking order they had all fought and bled for, had just been erased in an instant. The mountain they were all climbing just had a new peak added, one higher than any of them could hope to scale. The digital world fractured. Social media platforms, which were already buzzing with the results of the main event, simply stopped. Then they exploded. Her name became the number 1, 2, and 3 trending topic worldwide in under 60 seconds. Servers at major sports journalism websites crashed as millions tried to confirm what they had just seen. News anchors on live television, reporting on global events, were interrupted by producers in their earpieces. They would pause, their eyes widening, before announcing, "We are getting breaking news in the world of sports entertainment." The company's stock, traded on the NYSE, was set to jump 8 points at the opening bell. Every online insider and journalist who had confidently reported for 2 years that her career was over, that she would never be cleared, that she was done, they were all exposed. Their credibility, built over years, vanished. It wasn't just a comeback. It was a repudiation of the entire media ecosystem that fed off the industry. She hadn't just returned to the ring. She had returned to a world that had completely written her off. She had proven every single expert wrong. The narrative was no longer in the hands of the reporters. It was in her hands. And as she stood on that ramp, silent, she held the entire industry and the entire media world in the palm of her hand. In the weeks that followed, the locker room became a divided house. On one side, there was respect. The older veterans, the ones who had been there for her initial rise, saw her as a miracle. They saw the discipline it must have taken, the lonely hours of rehab, the grit, the sheer, stubborn refusal to accept her fate. They would watch her on the monitors with a quiet, appreciative nod. She had, in their eyes, respected the business by fighting her way back from an ending that should have been permanent. Then there was the other side, the younger generation, the ones who had arrived in her absence. They felt resentful. They had fought tooth and nail for every second of television time, for every spot on the poster. And in one night, with one entrance, she had rendered all their work meaningless. They were instantly demoted. They were now the opening act for her story. They saw the way the producers catered to her, the way the writers scrapped entire months of storylines to revolve everything around her. They would whisper in catering, their voices laced with envy. "She's just waltzed back into the main event. Must be nice to get handed everything." They didn't see the rehab. They didn't see the sacrifice. They only saw a ghost who had returned to steal their spotlight. The world saw the icon, the legend, the impossible comeback. But when she was alone, in the sterile quiet of a hotel room after a show, she saw something else. She saw a woman terrified. The world expected the hero. They expected the woman who left, the dominant, untouchable, invincible force of nature. But she wasn't that woman anymore. That woman had died on an operating table 2 years ago. This new woman, the one who looked back at her from the mirror, was held together by surgical steel and scar tissue. Every morning, she woke up in pain. Every night, she went to bed wondering if the next move in the ring would be the one that sent her back to the hospital. The pressure was suffocating. She couldn't just be good. She had to be perfect. She had to be the legend they were all cheering for. If she was even a step slower, if she showed even a flicker of weakness, the narrative would change. The miracle would become a tragedy. The comeback would become a mistake. She would watch old tapes of herself, tapes from before. She saw a fearlessness, an arrogance that she no longer possessed. She wasn't just fighting the champion in the ring, she was fighting her own ghost, and she was terrified that the ghost was going to win. The match was set. The main event of the grandest stage, the champion versus the ghost. The week before the show, the champion found her alone in the arena, hours before the doors opened. She was just sitting in the front row, staring at the empty ring. The champion didn't approach with anger, but with a weary, genuine confusion. "Why?" the champion asked, her voice echoing in the empty building. "Why did you come back?" The champion paced in front of her. "You had it all. The perfect career, the perfect exit. You were a legend, untouched. Now, you risk it all. You risk becoming a shell of yourself. You risk me ending you for real this time. For what? For this?" She held up the championship belt. "For a piece of metal? You don't need this. The fans already love you. You won. You beat the injury. Why are you here?" For the first time, the returning legend looked at her. Her eyes weren't filled with malice or ambition. They were just calm. "You think I came back for that?" she said, gesturing to the belt. "You think I went through 2 years of hell? For a title?" The champion was taken aback. "Then why? Why risk the humiliation? Why risk me?" The legend stood up, walking past her and stepped through the ropes, standing in the center of the ring. She turned to face the champion, who was still on the arena floor. "When I was on that stretcher," she began, her voice quiet but carrying, "when they were cutting my gear off me in the emergency room, I didn't think about the title. I didn't think about the fans. I didn't even think about my family." She paused, looking up at the rafters. "I thought about you." The champion's face tightened. "I thought about your face, looking down at me. Not with concern, but with opportunity. You saw your opening. My ending was your beginning." The legend walked to the ropes, leaning over them. "You think I came back to beat you? You think I came back to win the belt?" She let out a small, hollow laugh. "I didn't come back to win." A cold realization washed over the champion's face. "I came back," the legend continued, "to lose." The champion was stunned. "What?" I'm not the woman I was. We both know it. My body is done. This comeback, it's not a new chapter. It's the epilogue. The twist landed. The shock wasn't her return. It was her purpose. They all remember me leaving on a stretcher, she said, her voice turning to ice. They remember your victory. That is the history. But I'm going to rewrite it. You will beat me. You will pin me in the center of this ring. But I will walk out. I will leave on my own 2 feet. My career didn't end on your terms. It ends on mine.